Good morning. So, for those of you who didn't know, Spencer and I are going to be doing priest ordination, August 19th. Mark your calendars. And so I've been sort of having some thoughts about that. And I've also had some thoughts about precepts, which makes sense because taking the precepts is part of ordination, priest ordination, just like it is for Jukai or later ordination, which some of us have done. I did it with Beth and Aaron. Cool. So I'm going to start this talk off with a koan from the Book of Serenity, Case 4. When the world-honored one was walking with his assembly, he pointed to the ground with his hand and said, "This is a good place for building a temple." Indra took a stalk of grass and stuck it in the ground and said, "The temple has been built." The world-honored one smiled. Now, in the Book of Serenity, the compiler, Wansong, put some interjections in, and after "the temple has been built," his comment is, "Repairs won't be easy."
Repairs won't be easy.
I wanted to remix it. So, the world-honored one was walking down the path with some people when he stopped and pointed to a spot. "Here would be a good place to construct a sanctuary." A monk walked over to the spot and sewed an okesa. "The sanctuary is constructed," the monk said. The world-honored one smiled. And again, repairs will not be easy. So, as I have been working on my okesa, which is the Buddha robe that you wear over the left shoulder when you ordain as a priest, I've been live streaming some of my sewing sessions over Facebook. For some reason, this helps to motivate me to sew. Maybe I feel less isolated. Like at Tassajara, when it's not guest season, there's usually 1 or 2 tables that are set up in the dining room so that people can work on their sewing of rakusus, okesas, zagu, etc. And it's really nice to do that with other people and to include other people in the sewing. And I like that idea of sharing what I'm doing with my friends and family. So yesterday I was doing that, live streaming over Facebook, and I was playing lo-fi hip hop from a speaker close to my computer so that if anyone was watching, they would have something at least to entertain them a little bit. And the reason for that is there's a popular live YouTube stream where there's lo-fi hip hop playing to a loop of an anime cartoon girl doing homework. So that's the kind of vibe I wanted to emulate. And just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about, let me just do this real quick. Thanks for...
Could you play louder for us?
I don't know what happened to it, but it should be coming out my speaker. Huh. Oh. Huh. That's weird.
I can hear it. It's just really low.
Really?
Oh well. So, well, anyways, all right, I'm gonna stop that. That'll just give you an idea of the kind of vibe that I was going for. Yeah, where do I get out of full screen mode of this? Okay, back to my notes. So there you go, you get the idea. So as I'm doing this, I found myself thinking that someone I know from San Francisco Zen Center might find fault with me doing that, especially with the music. Like, this isn't performative. It's supposed to be super serious and personal and maybe private. But I don't know. I don't know what other people think, but that's what I was thinking they might think. But one of the things that I think is important in Zen is how personal it is. Every person's practice is unique. There are a lot of common elements, at least on the surface, when we're talking about and looking at the shared history we draw from in studying the way. But ultimately, in practice, no two practices are going to be the same. This is true for the precepts as well, of course, because the precepts are part of our practice. And so we shouldn't try to do a practice that's different. We shouldn't like purposely custom build our Zen practice. We should sincerely try to do this practice without projecting our ideas about our small selves into it, even though we, or at least I, do that kind of a lot. It's just an inevitable fact that no two people's karma is going to be identical. And we must practice with this karma even while we struggle to live up to our vows. There's no other way to practice. This is an example of using the ground to get to the sky. This is also another example of all alone together. That's why Sangha is so important. As Peter pointed out in his talk about the Bodhisattva ceremony, the monks back in the day would only come together to renew their vows once or twice a month. In between those gatherings, they were on their own. The ceremony is really nice, and having a standard translation of a standard list of precepts is really helpful. And as written, they are a great place to start and keep coming back to. But I think if we just take the precepts at face value, if we try to nail down the meaning of the precepts, if we try to standardize the interpretation, then they are dead. I think we should play with the precepts, rearrange them, expand them, consolidate them, reimagine them. Maybe not to misuse sexuality is not to treat people like intoxicants. Maybe not to praise self at the expense of others is not to throw people under the bus. In the past, for me, I took not to partake in intoxicants as, well, you know, if I want to be like Buddha, then that's what I would do. But nowadays, for me, not to take intoxicants is not to take intoxicants. It's going to change. So let's see. Yeah, I think maybe a lot of the precepts could just be summed up as don't treat desires like needs. Just a thought. We really only take one precept. Do good and avoid bad. Also, we take countless precepts. We take a new precept every time we are confronted with a choice. And it's up to us and no one else to figure out how to follow a precept each time an opportunity presents itself. The precepts are personal. We are saying the same words, but we don't know what they mean to anyone but ourselves, if that. They are a koan for each of us to carry, a focus for our practice, our effort to understand Buddhism by living it in action. The effects of precept practice benefit us, of course. And because of this, like the oxygen mask on an airplane, we can benefit all beings. We can take this attitude when we practice the precepts, but we don't have to. We wouldn't necessarily see the oxygen masks drop down and think, I got to get this mask on so I can help the person next to me without passing out. So the ideas for this talk began during an impromptu chat with some folks at Tassajara. One of the people made a comment to the effect of, the precepts are unnatural because they would have us go against normal human impulses. I kept my mouth shut. I didn't feel any particular need to, I didn't feel like what I wanted to say was necessarily rude, but I was just kind of in a groove of just like watching. And I really recommend that, not during Q&A, of course, but in general. It's interesting to observe life without commenting on it. Oh, and by the way, you probably already know all this stuff. So please don't feel like I'm telling you something because I think you don't know it and you need me to tell you. I'm just the one giving the talk today. So I'm just kind of spewing some ideas and riffing a little bit. So thank you for indulging me in that. Anyways, so the thought that I had in response to that guy's comment was, yes, against our natural inclinations, perhaps against the stream, one might say. Emphasis added. Or as Peter would say, against, or said on Tuesday anyways, against the small self stream. So Sure, a lot of the impulses which the precepts would have us resist are natural, but then suffering is natural too, and the whole point of Buddhism is freedom from suffering. Precepts are good ethical behavior, Shila Paramita, which is good practice purely for its own sake. It's a basic expression of Buddhism. When people say stuff like, so Buddhism is basically just like being a good person, right? They have a point. Like, no, it's not all it is. There's kind of a lot to it, but wait, kind of, no, I don't know, maybe. It's freedom from suffering and helping all beings be free from suffering, I think. I'll figure it out one of these days. I also often find myself following the precepts out of laziness sometimes because they just make things a little easier. The precepts are helpful because life is just preferable when I'm following them. So following the precepts is beneficial to me, and that's beneficial to all beings. So everyone wins. It's all beneficial all around, no matter which way you approach it. So I've kind of rambled a lot here, and I want to tie this back into ordination somehow, or at least I want to say a little bit more about ordination. I think that probably, Peter, within the first few weeks of me coming here, I was like, can I be a priest? And you're like, maybe give it some time. But this impulse has been rather persistent. And it's part of why I went to Tassajara for the full summer and then repeatedly again after that back in 2011. Anywho, so I get out of the Navy, and I went into the Navy partially so I could get myself into a position to go back to Tassajara for practice period. But so I get out and I'm going to do that, but first I have to do a practice period at Green Gulch before I can go to Tassajara. And the Shuso for that practice period was Grace Daman. And she gave her Shuso Way Seeking Mind talk. And in it, she talked about a point at which she was at a crossroads in life and she wasn't sure what to do next. And she mentioned this to someone, and whoever this was said, okay, well, here's what you do. And I was at a crossroads, so I listened. I was like, okay, what am I doing? What do I do now that I'm at a crossroads also? And the person said, what you should do is you should sit on the edge of your bed and just be very quiet and ask your heart, what is its deepest desire? I heard that, I was like, well, that's not really helpful because I already know my heart's deepest desire is to ordain as a priest. So how is that going to help me decide what to do at this juncture in my life? Anyways, so that's that anecdote. Like Plato's concept of forms, like the precepts, like Zen itself, I imagine that there is a version of Zen priest that exists as some ideal, quote unquote, in our collective alaya vijnana, and perhaps this is what my heart is pulling me toward. But I'm bringing some karma into the mix, which is going to affect what sort of priest you all are about to get. I will endeavor to live up to the example set by the ancestors and Jane and Peter, though I might fall short. And if I do, I hope you will forgive me, because this endeavor is for you. There's a quote from Mel Weitzman you might have heard, and I found this on Lion's Roar. When I was about to be ordained in 1969, I asked Suzuki Roshi what it meant to be ordained as a priest and what I should do. He said, I don't know. Then I asked Katagiri Sensei, and he said, oh, I don't know. So there's a cinematic, underrated cinematic masterpiece called Pirates of the Caribbean, starring the inimitable Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, Captain Jack Sparrow. And there's a point towards the end where he's talking about his ship, the Black Pearl. Wherever, I'm not going to try and do a Jack Sparrow impersonation, sorry. He says, wherever we want to go, we go. That's what a ship is, you know? It's not just a keel and a hull and sails. That's what a ship needs, not what a ship is. What the Black Pearl really is freedom. So what is a priest? it's not just a shaved head and robes and offering incense during service. That's what a priest needs, not what a priest is. What a priest is, what I'm undertaking to be, is again, like the precepts, it's best not to decide on an answer, I think. At least for now. Maybe that will change once I start trying it out. But for now, I think it's better to work this koan and let it work me. Always curious and sincerely seeking the answer or answers, but never settling on one and giving up the hunt. Was there anything wrong with sewing live on Facebook? Maybe, maybe not. But when I put away I wanted to say apropos of nothing. Okay, that was so unnecessary, but this is kind of like out of the blue, whatever. Anyways, what I wanted to say, which doesn't really tie into anything, but it's a funny little, it's true, and it's a funny way to end this talk, is when I did put away the computer and stopped trying to broadcast and just sewed on my own and went back to chanting Namukia Butsu with every stitch, my stitches got better. I don't know what to do with that, but there you go. Thank you. So now if someone wants to say something. Oh, Jane. All right, hold on one second. Let me do this real quick. Okay. All right.
Well, Chris, thank you for your talk. That was a very interesting talk. I think your streaming idea was an excellent one.
Oh, good.
Personally, because you're just putting creativity to work within the same conditions, and that's fine. I think that's a good way. And who knows how many people you might inspire just by doing that. So
that's kind of what I was hoping I was going for.
Well, you've heard the story about the lady who puts on a priest's robe in jest in one lifetime, and the next lifetime she becomes a priest. You never know what seeds you're planting with things like that. And if, as you say, you're chanting while you're sewing, I think it's a very good idea.
All right, cool. I'll keep live streaming.
Also, the thing I like best about what you said about what it means to be a priest is for you to work on it and let it work on you. I think that's the important part of the status, because not only does your mind have ideas working as hard as you can, which is good, but your body is also going to work on it. And somewhere between the two, the real feeling of it will come up together. So thank you for the talk. It certainly made me feel thoughtful, so I appreciate it.
I observe Greg Fain often. He will do his elbows like out, so there's horizontal. And I always kind of thought, wow. But last few times I visited Tassajara, I borrowed one of their lay sitting robes, and the one I borrowed was kind of long, but it was also a little slippery. There was less friction than in some of the fabric, anyways. And I found that I kind of had to do that to keep the sleeves from falling down, and just physically, holding my hands in gasho that way, the way Greg Fain was, and not just him, but he's the one who kind of sticks out. Just that physical embodiment of doing it that way felt some kind of way.
I think that's a nice way to do it, because that is the way we were all taught to do it. And it's good that somebody does it in the Zendo, because it is the natural way to do it. And it's a beautiful way to do it as well. And we all learned to do that to begin with. And as we got older, our elbows kept dropping in spite of the sleeves. But it doesn't matter. That somebody does it is great. So I appreciate it when you do it.
And also, like during the Bodhisattva precept ceremony, I'll try and do this, and then I'll find myself like kind of relaxing. And it's it's like breaking a precept. You do your best to go back, but don't don't beat yourself up, or don't beat myself up if I'm letting my that's okay, let your elbows down, for crying out loud. You don't want to like burn out your muscles, but then when you can, go back to it.
That's true.
Or like I'll like shift which muscles are like tense to try and like bear the weight of my arms differently. Anyway.
anyway, whatever you do, when your intention is good like that, I think that can only be a good thing in the Zen.
Yeah, and that's a common thing that I keep coming back to is it's the intention.
Yeah, I think it's always the intention. If your intention is pure for the group, that will reach everyone, and who knows how many people you will aspire to really pay attention when they're chanting because of that. You never know, you reach everybody by every little thing, so thank you, your talk was very, very nice.
Thank you. Let's see, have we, I see Sandy raising her hand. Huh.
Not yet, Sandy.
Microphone.
Yeah, I'm showing you've got your Zoom mic muted. So if you click the microphone icon and then click unmute, or actually it might, let's see, could I? There we go. Oh wait, okay, so now you're unmuted via Zoom. Nah. Well, in the meantime, I think I didn't see exactly, but it was Mike.
I'll keep this real brief while Sandy works on her microphone. You made a statement in your talk about why am I making this decision? And it reminded me of the talk I gave a couple of weeks ago where you can't really ask that question. Life directs you if you pay attention. If you really pay attention to everything you go through throughout your life and go, why did I go through that and all that? It seems to be probably the most natural direction for you to go in. You know, you've had to go through the experiences you've been in and you get wondering, what do I want to do with this? What am I going to do with it? That question can't be answered, I don't think. Is, like I said in my talk, was follow the path of heart. You follow the direction that you feel you're going in and you just go in it. You don't have to ask a question. And by the way, from our conversations, while you drive me over here every time, you're gonna make a good priest. Don't worry about it.
That's what I think. I think you would definitely make a good priest.
Thank you. I think she, oh no. Oh, I heard some noise.
Oh, are you
There,
there?
you're back. Yep, all right, now we can hear you.
Okay. All right. It's somehow it does something. It changes and then you have to reset it back. I wanted to thank you for your talk. And when you started out about, were you doing the right thing about going online and sewing your robe, even with just a little bit of background music, I would have been so overjoyed to find a video like that. Especially when I first started in as a sewing teacher, because I could actually see somebody doing it. When I first started, I had no one around me to really help me except for, I think it was Helen, came and helped me cut fabric and give me a little bit of help. And Jane tried to help when she could. And just to see another person doing that, makes it more real about what you're doing. And it's hard to find things like that sometimes on the line. And I think it's a good thing you're doing. I think it'll be a positive influence for anyone who runs across those videos. So.
All right, cool. I've got some encouragement and again, like this is just something like my brain was wondering is like, like I also kind of catastrophize from time to time, like when I'm thinking like the worst possible or scenario, something could happen, or in this case, it was like, what's something really negative that someone might think, but like that's just one of those annoying one of those annoying habits of the mind is imagining people thinking bad things about me. Or not bad, but like critical. But
Critical, right.
yeah,
I think all of us have that to some extent. It's just how long you're going to allow yourself to believe it,
yeah.
you know?
There was a
Yeah.
thing on Facebook where there was a bus driver, it looked like a bicycle driver, apparently almost collided and just stopped. And the bicycle rider was giving the bus driver the finger. But he was a shaved head monk.
Wait, the bicycle rider was a monk?
Yeah.
Oh.
And underneath somebody needs his morning meditation.
Yeah, the bus driver.
But the thing that's interesting to me is that it's okay if people look at that for a long time. I've kept thinking, oh, that's really terrible. Now I think it's just funny. Because it just shows people are people everywhere.
Even if I put on a robe.
No matter what you're wearing, people are still human. They're
People
just
are people, so why should it? All
Even
right.
if you wear a dress, you're still okay.
Rachel,
Okay.
Rachel,
A dress made of owl feathers. I was listening to an episode of Angel City Zen Center's podcast on the way over, and they were talking about the precepts. And I wrote most of this talk between 3:30 and 5:30 this morning. I've been compiling notes like this whole time, but I feel like it wasn't as organized as it could have. Anywho, long story short, that was one of the original Vinaya, was not to engage in sexual activity when dressed in a dress of owl feathers. So I'm glad that we distilled it down to like 10 specific ones. Then again, yeah. Well, I've got Rachel showing a hand right here.
Thank you, Chris. We'll talk. There must be someone somewhere it would ruffle their feathers, but I don't believe on this screen. In order to sew, you have to thread the needle. In fact, in order to do anything like that, no matter how rudimentary, there has to be preparation. And I just thank you for being willing to reveal your preparatory thoughts and actions. Not everyone will do that. Thank you.
Well, that's it seems to be not because I had this idea and I'm making it so, but I've just observed I tend to wear my heart on my sleeve. I tend to be a loudmouth. I'm very gregarious. I've heard one adjective I've heard that I like is demonstrative. I'm like, well, I just got to roll with that. Now, if I have opportunities and I can sort of, like in the conversation agreements that East Bay Meditation Center, step up and step back, because like if you tend to, stay quiet, like say something, or if you tend to talk a lot, maybe like I did that one day, just sit quietly and observe. But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, just in general, I'm not gonna like give myself a hard time too much, or try not to anyways. John?
I heard a little, I call it a little story that I thought was interesting that might be apropos here, because it seems, Chris, that a lot of your talk, at least behind the scenes, was your apprehension about streaming it based on what other people might think about you. And, even what you just said, that oftentimes you're loud and gregarious. And again, what people might think about you, are they going to be saying things about you behind your back or to you, or even just thinking bad things about you? So I wanted to tell you a little story. So there's this little bird, And he's having a great fall, but it's getting near time where he has to travel in order to beat the weather. But he's enjoying himself a little too much, and he goes a little too late, and he's flying, and his wings just freeze up, and he falls to the ground. And when he's near death, a cow comes along and does what a cow does and craps on him. And the warmth of that dung warmed the bird to the point where he felt better, and he began to tweet. He was feeling better. And then along came a cat who heard his tweeting and pulled him out of the dung and ate him. The moral of the story is, not everybody that shits on you means you harm, and not everybody that pulls you out of the shit is your friend. Not my story, just repeating it, but I thought it apropos of it. Not always should we be so concerned with the thoughts and actions of others. And even when those thoughts and actions we may think of as being, what are they doing? They're hurting our ego.
Yeah.
Well,
And now I'm like worried that you all think I was thinking more about this than I was, and I was about to be like, I wasn't thinking about it that much, and then I realized anyway. But
I think we thought if we were all in the same, we might think the same.
yeah, you might be like,
step in a situation where it's suddenly out of the ordinary system activities. We worry a little bit. Well, what could they think? They might be opposed to it. Maybe they're right. I think if we didn't think that they might be right, we probably wouldn't think about it at all.
yeah.
So it's like you're trying to work it out. And I think when you go with your true creative impulses, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, if I'm ever doing something and you're like, okay, not that, just let me know.
I'll try.
All right.
I have one piece of advice when you're on camera, don't pick your nose.
I have to run. Sorry.
I wasn't picking my nose. Was I? I don't think so. All right. Well, anyways, thank you, John. Oh, shoot. He already left. All right. Well, I mean, his story was a great way to cap it. Thank you all for your attention. Please take very good care of yourselves.